Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Wealthy Wednesdays. Our focus is to increase the knowledge of building generational wealth by speaking with industry leaders within our community. Tonight's episode is brought to you thanks to More Owned Businesses. Make sure you go over to moreownedbusinesses.com where they promote products and services by Black-owned businesses, making it easier to build and support our community from within. Also, special thanks to Adorned by Rhea. I want to put that up on the screen there. So y'all can see that. All right, make sure you go check out adornedbyrhea.com. They have a vast assortment of beautiful waist beads and stacker bracelets for all of your wonderful beauty needs. So tonight, I would like to welcome Angel Radcliffe. All right, let me bring her in. Are you there, Angel? There we go.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much
It
for
is.
having me.
Thank you for being here. Want to just give a little background of who Angel Radcliffe is. She's an author, a speaker, financial educator, guru of all kind of sorts. I know you got a whole bunch. You got your stuff in a whole bunch of different things. I mean, because I've known you for a while, but I'll let you go into a little bit more of that. Just so tell me a little bit more about you, and tell us a little bit more about you and what do you do?
Okay, so as you said, I'm a financial educator, and in addition to that, I'm also a business strategist slash consultant. So entrepreneur, businesswoman, like there's so many different descriptors, but I own my own company, CAS Consultants, which is now under A Leverage Group. And under that particular company, we host financial education workshops, partnering with nonprofits, partnering with businesses to teach employees about financial literacy. I also work with entrepreneurs and those who are looking to get into entrepreneurship and creating their business plan and helping to track their revenue and expenses. Gosh, there's so many things that I do. Real estate is one of the umbrellas under my company as well, real estate investing, as well as property management. And outside of being an entrepreneur, I work in IT. So a little bit of a nerd.
Exactly. I see. I knew you did a lot of those things. I just didn't want to. Some people like to remain a little bit anonymous or mysterious about some of the things they do.
Jane of all trades.
I know, right? And you know what? We need that, in these times, in this day and age, right? Just being able to pivot. There has been so many different causes of pivoting as of late, but we'll get into that, So I know that we're here to talk about financial literacy and budgeting and stuff like that. So we are going to start in that area. Now, I understand that you got books. Speaking of books, I know they're over there somewhere. There we go. I don't know which way to look because my left is right, my right is left. So every time I move my head, I'm like, okay, can you see them? All right. So she has books. We'll talk about that as well. But how long have you been in the financial, circuit?
So I started teaching financial literacy in 2012, so 8 years ago, and that was primarily something I did to volunteer with my time. And I'd say 2014, 2015, it became a little bigger than just me volunteering my time, more as me speaking at private events, retreats, corporate America within ERG groups, and has expounded since then, turning into not only the books, but online webinars, private webinars. There's so much more, helping to educate those who are looking to become a financial educator and being an advocate for them, empowering other people to really get this knowledge out to our communities that are lacking the financial knowledge.
I mean, that's great. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we really need in our community, is being understanding what financial literacy is. Sometimes people don't really understand exactly how far that plays a part in our growth and in everything that we do. Because not being able to understand our personal finances, will prevent us from doing a lot of other things.
Does.
Being able to if you can't set a budget, you know, you're going to be out spending a whole bunch of extra money, or I don't even like to call it extra money because there is no such thing as extra money. But you're going to be spending a lot more frivolously instead of being able to have money for these rainy days. And I think we've seen about 90 rainy days right about now because a lot of there's a lot of things that's happening now where a lot of people probably did not uh, they didn't. There was no way to plan for this. Or I'll put it this way: sometimes I guess as a financial educator, or a consultant that's probably says, "Hey, you should have X amount of days for a rainy day fund." Yeah, I don't think a lot of people kind of put into play this whole COVID Corona issue right now because you know there's a lot of the job force that's pretty much drying up. I think that unemployment is probably in the 42s now, 42 million at least. You always got to watch those numbers because they were saying 40 million, about a month ago, and now
They
it's just like,
really
oh, it's
changing.
only like 2 more million. I'm like, nah, that's
and,
impossible.
and the thing is, the bulk of the layoffs haven't even come yet. So
Right,
I believe the end of this third quarter, there's already companies who are saying that they're going to have to lay off starting at the executive level. It's always a top-down approach. So I
right.
know American Airlines, Fidelity. There's been a number of companies who have put statements out that said that they are offering packages, and so we haven't even seen the height of this
Right.
effect from the pandemic.
Yeah. So, what was your motivation to pretty much go into this field? I know that you're in multiple fields, myself, myself included. I swear I try to keep my hand in a little bit of everything. But what was your motivation to move into like the financial industry?
So, gosh, every time I tell the story, it's always start off laughing because my mom hates when I tell the story. So, growing up, I grew up in a single parent household, and I have three siblings. My mother worked very hard to take care of us, not with one jobs, but with three jobs. And I think that's where I get a lot of my dedication and hard work ethic from. But
Right.
with her being so busy, um, she was a really great mom. I don't think that she thought about the things that we needed to know, or I would say, in addition, she wasn't equipped with the knowledge herself, the
Right.
financial knowledge. And so when I went to college, I remember making friends with a lot of different people, and I would see how they had credit cards and they were able to just buy whatever they wanted, and their parents would send them money. And like my mom she wasn't able to send me money while I was in college. I had to work full time and go to college at the same time.
Right.
And so I ended up getting a few credit cards because I said, okay, well, I need to pay my bills. I got to buy books. I have to put gas in my car. And
Right.
I was never taught the importance of credit management or money management. It was always, every time I had money in my hand, that saying, don't let the money burn a hole in your pocket. I
Right.
was the person who let the money burn a hole in my pocket because as soon as I got a paycheck, money
Yeah.
from school, anywhere, like it was gone. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I gotta get a new outfit. Okay, I gotta get this. Okay, it was always like something that I thought I needed to buy.
Right.
And if you remember being like that college age and going out to parties, like every time, I
Yeah.
remember I would always tell myself, I'm never going to wear the same outfit to a party. I have to get a new outfit because I can't wear that outfit I wore last week. And so this kind of went on through the entire time I was in college to when I graduated. I had this I mean, and it's like we all have expectations of how much money we're going to make when we graduate. So I was like, oh, I'm going to graduate. I'm going to make $100,000, like my first job. I'm going to be able to pay off all these bills. That was not reality.
Right.
That was not reality. And I think no one ever stopped and had that conversation with me to tell me what those salary expectations like should be, so I could like plan to pay off the student loan debt, the credit card debt appropriately. So when I graduated from college, I had over $20,000 in credit card debt. And I think that's a lot for someone
Right.
who's like 23 years old, but I
Right.
know I have friends who had way more than that.
Right.
But that's still a lot, and you don't have a way to pay it back because I didn't graduate and have immediately and went into employment right away. It was a gap. I probably
Right.
waited 6 months before I had a real job. And so the job I had was paying me like $10 an hour. And I was
Right.
like, well, where are these jobs at that are going to pay?
Degree now. Yeah.
And when I finally got my first job, I got a job at a very large insurance company that I won't name as a business analyst. And I'm thinking, business analyst? Oh yeah.
Here come the money.
I'm going to be balling, working for this major company. And when I saw like my offer letter, my starting salary was barely $30,000 a year. And reality like start to set in. I was still living at home shortly after graduation. I think my mom had this assumption that, okay, you have a degree now, you must be like getting a lot of money from this job. And,
Right.
you know, and I always say, no, I don't have a lot of money. Like this place is not paying this much money. And it took a few years of struggling at such a low income rate. I hate to say low income, but that's what it was. And realizing I was like living paycheck to paycheck. I did not have extra money to throw towards student loans or throw towards the credit card bills. It was like the money came and the money went. And probably about 5 years after that, I was tired and I was like, how do I wasn't at the same job for 5 years, but I was making more money, and eventually, I say after 5 years, I was still only making like $55,000.
Right.
And I remember saying, okay, well, this is like getting me somewhere, but it's not getting me like where I want to be. But when I ran the numbers and I spoke to someone at work, they were saying, okay, well, with the salary that you're making, you should be able to save a little bit of something, because I had zero in my savings account.
Right.
And it's a harder reality start to set in. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm spending too much, like trying to keep up with the Joneses, because all my friends, not all of them, but some of my friends they were making a little bit more money. Everyone was getting in the nicer cars. And I was like, well, you know, maybe I should get a roommate. And I was like, okay, no, I'm too grown for a roommate. And I was only like 26, 27 years old.
Right.
So thinking I was like too old for a roommate. And I was like, in actuality, I should have stayed at home like the whole time, like at least 5 years. I don't know, save up money, because that's what a lot of kids were doing, and kids are still doing this day to today's age. But when I sat down with someone at work and they were telling me like, you should be able to save at least $1,000 a month, and I was like, where? Looking where? And they were like, okay, well, one, you're paying too much for your car. And then they said, okay, well, two, like you live in this luxury apartment. Like I think I was paying like $1,200 a month for rent, which it was a lot of money, but I wanted to live in a nicer apartment and you know be flashy. And when people came to visit, I wanted them to have something to wow about. And then I realized like, okay, I'm doing all these things for other people that's not necessarily getting me anywhere, any progress like financially to save money. And it just sort of clicked, it hit. And I was like, all right, I have to do something different, where I started to track my expenses. I started using mint.com. And I remember being introduced to so many different things, learning how to save. Some people are still doing spreadsheets. And what was really bad about this is that my first few jobs after college, I worked in corporate finance. So every time I tell people this, I'm here and I'm managing a corporate budget, and I'm managing budgets for departments, and I didn't have my own budget intact. So like when I looked at it, and when I would go and apply for jobs and working in accounting or finance, any employer is going to run your credit report. And I remember having a job interview, and my credit report was ran, and the HR lady looked at me like, this is who we're going to hire?
Yeah, right. Like, look, don't worry about what my personal things are, you know.
So, I mean, so that helped everything set in as well. I was like, I have to get my stuff together.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, how am I going to advance and get a better job if, moving up into these high level positions in finance and accounting, like I have to get my credit together. My credit wasn't really together. My
Right.
budget wasn't together. And I didn't have that from my family. I didn't have that knowledge from my family because my mom never had a credit card until she was in her 50s.
Right.
And right now, my mom's only 58 years old. So
Yeah.
when I was in college, she couldn't teach me anything about credit or budget management because those are things that she didn't do. She was trying to survive, trying to take care of her kids. So
Right.
and I think a lot of the lack of financial knowledge is like prevalent in the African American community or even with people of color, because when you look at the history of generational wealth and how there's a wealth gap, there are like African American families who only average a net worth of $18,000 when compared to the majority, which is Caucasian.
Yeah.
Their average family net worth is 10 times more.
Exactly.
So that knowledge, that information lacked in our family, lacked in the community. And so I decided to take the first step, start cutting down my expenses. Not only that, get a better job.
Yeah. Exactly.
I felt like I was underpaid, even though I had a friend from work who happened to work in HR. She was like, "You're not underpaid. You spend too much money." And I was like, "Well, maybe I just have bigger aspirations."
Right. Exactly.
But I had to do both. I had to realize that one, I was selling myself short working at a company where I wasn't making much money. And when I looked at my counterparts who had the same degree, same credentials, they were making close to $100,000, and I hadn't even hit $60,000 yet. So
Yeah.
I said, okay, I have to get my life together, start saving money, start getting on a budget, and then I started to teach my friends about finances and how do you set a budget and what apps to use. And then it became like me helping my family members and me working on my credit and getting my credit together to the point where right before I turned 30, I was like, okay, I think I have it going on.
Exactly.
But I, with that knowledge and just talking to different people, I realized that it was not a widespread discussed topic.
Right.
And we would have lunch conversations at work and people were like, what do you mean? And then it became almost like a passion for me to help educate other
Right.
people, because I said, okay, well, if these people I was having conversations with, I was in my late 20s, they were in their early 40s. These are coworkers of mine. And I said, okay, if they don't know, I'm like, how would other people even know this information? And I'm expecting them to be like mentors to me and teach me things. And they're like, whoa, Angel, you're like giving us all this great information. And I remember seeing a volunteer opportunity. There's a nonprofit here in Dallas called Attitudes in Attire. And the nonprofit is founded on helping women who have been in battered positions
Right.
become more independent. So the program takes these women through sort of like self-care, career workshops, and one component of the program is financial literacy.
Right.
So I saw a volunteer opportunity to go in and host a workshop, and I said, I think I can do this. I was already volunteering there in their boutique. So one benefit that the women actually get, once they attend 2 sessions of their choice, then they obtain like free clothes out of this boutique where there's department stores that donate brand new clothes, suits for job interviews. And so I was already volunteering in the boutique and helping the women learn how to dress for their job interviews. And then I saw the opportunity for the workshop and I said, I think I could do this. Right. And I volunteered, and 20 women in the room, that's sort of their cap. And by the end of the presentation, there was like so many questions where people were saying, well, where do I get my credit report from? Well, how do I do this? How do I do that? And how did you learn to do this? And this is like really good. And can you, they wanted to call me. Yeah. Like, can I have your phone number? Like, can I call you? And so, even the directors of the program, they're like, oh, this is really great. Can you come back? And so that's really how it started, as I say, in the public eye, as far as volunteering in the community. And geez, it's been a roller coaster since.
Yeah, I mean, I can just imagine. I think that one of the things that you touched on is we don't really learn this information, whether it is, this information we should learn at home, right? But then we actually have a problem that a lot of our parents didn't understand it either. There is so many things that's generational, that they didn't know, their parents didn't know, and you just kind of like everyone was on the struggle bus, and they kind of taught the same type of mentality instead of saying, okay, they may teach you how to save a little bit, or they put some money away for a rainy day or something like that. But understanding all the other intricacies of, creating a financial plan, of having, maybe, understanding what, 529 plans are, or understanding how to, look for different loans or look for different programs to, possibly start off with a secure card, something, not just getting those credit cards that you get to, in freshman year. And it's just like, hey, hang yourself. Like, because I know what happened. And it was just like, oh, wait a minute. I barely got books and you're giving me credit cards. So, yeah, I understand it. And I see, I mean, we have that in our community all the time, especially here in the Black community. There's a lot of us that don't know, and there's a lot of that, celebrity worship, a lot of the, trying to keep up with the Jones. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to tackle first, is to, find a way to create this type of plan to say, okay, look, what are we going to do? Or try to, uh, another thing that you focus on as well is like entrepreneurship. If you can't, if you can't get your own personal finances in order, then it's going to be very hard
Very hard to run a business.
to run a business. And everyone knows that entrepreneurship, or owning a business, is pretty much one of the foundations of wealth. And whether it's going to be, real estate and all of those other things as well. But at the same time, it is going to be one of those cornerstones is going to be able to give you those tax breaks, give you these a lot of different things that a lot of people, they, like I said, we don't talk about. We don't know. Sometimes even when we go to school, there's things that they don't teach us in school, and it's like, well, damn, I'm here, whether in, high school or, college or whatever, and it's like, unless you're, focusing on like MBAs and those type of, programs, you might not. There's a lot of things you might not know, even if you are taking those classes.
Right. That's absolutely correct. And that's one thing I always tell people who come to me and they want to work on a business plan, or they're saying, okay, I need to do a side hustle. I said, what do your personal finances look like? Because if you can't manage your personal finances, how are you going to manage those for a business? But even more so, how are you going to manage two separate accounts? Because one, you have to separate your business and personal finances, and then you have to learn to build business credit. And if you don't have your personal credit in order, how are you going to learn to build business credit if you're being irresponsible with credit cards and keeping a high balance, not paying your payments on time? And so those two subjects definitely correlate with each other. And it's the entrepreneurship information, the financial literacy information. It's lacking. It's lacking in our communities.
Right. And so, how do you propose that we start to tackle? I know this is a loaded question. I know this is a loaded question. How do you propose that we start tackling these? I mean, there are a lot of uh, courses and a lot of different things that's out there that's, probably free, that a lot of people are not taking advantage of. There is, obviously there's YouTube University that has a lot of different things on there. But I mean, you cannot trust everything on YouTube except for things that's on this show. Make sure you're. I'm just playing. So things of that sort. So just understand that there's a lot of things that's out there. But how do you, what are like some of the ways that we start to tackle this issue within our community? Just to start promoting financial literacy. Just give them a bigger a definition of what that actually means, instead of just saying, hey, you might need to save for a rainy day.
So I think I definitely think government needs to step in have those programs. That's one thing that I've been trying to do in Dallas is work with not only like our city council, but join a board and be over the economic impact and have financial literacy sessions. And I hate to say that it's I don't want to restrict it to those who are receiving assistance, like governmental assistance, but it seems like there's a large population of people who are receiving assistance who need it the most. So I have I have said before, I do believe like if you're going to receive some type of assistance from the state, from your county, you should be required to go through a financial literacy class. And speaking with leaders at corporations, we have people who are joining fresh out of college and they're making a ton of money. Like I work in IT. I have mentees who are 23, 24 years old making close to $100,000 and they tell me that they're broke. and, and I laugh and I'm like, do you know how much I made when I was 23 years old?
Yeah, I know, right? I don't even want to tell people how much I made when I was 23.
And they're still living at home with their parents and they're like, okay, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it's like, I think, times have definitely changed from when I first graduated from college because the amount that these new graduates are making, I look at it, I'm like, what? I'm like, where were these jobs when I graduated?
I know, right?
But I think it should be mandatory for new hires. Companies have to step in. Government has to step in. Financial educators definitely have to step in. I know that there's a lot of financial educators who only speak for money or who only will take on clients for money, but you have to take the time and give back, work with nonprofits who are going out in these communities, who are bringing people in who need that information. I think it's so important to give back. And actually that same nonprofit organization, I still volunteer with them. I'm still one of their regular financial educators, still coming in. I donate books. I do as much as I can. So we have a part that we have to play as well, but it's going to take more than people who are teaching financial literacy. It's going to take these companies to step in and say, okay, we think, maybe they need to have a mandatory session every year.
Right.
In addition to requiring new hires to go through this training, you require new hires to go through like the orientation and they learn about benefits and 401k and all these other supplemental benefits. Financial literacy should be one of those. So
exactly. And you touched on 401k. I don't think a lot of people understand that, and they just know it's something that you pay into and do whatever. And that's it. They don't understand the ins and outs and workings of these mutual funds and everything else. And I think, whether you're a novice or, afraid of the stock market or anything like that, I think that's one of the things that we need to really start teaching or, to educate a lot more people about, because, some of the things that you're investing in or within your 401k, you might want to diversify a little bit because it's not necessarily. Oh, boy, I really don't want to touch on that, but it's
go ahead.
It's you have to understand whose best interest is at stake here. And the company is, just think about it. I've worked in small companies and I've also worked in large corporations, right? And so I worked for one of the major banks in the Midwest, and they actually cross over to Seattle and the Pacific Northwest and all those areas. So the money that you're contributing into that 401k monthly, or every 2 weeks or whatever it's going to be, it's like I said. I think there's an education process that needs to be that a lot of people need to understand what that's really doing. Because if you figure out, that you're investing maybe 5,000, it just depends on what you're making, right? If you're depositing $5,000 a month, every month for 40 years,
which is not realistic for someone earning like the average income. So I like to just use like percentage. Like I always say, if your job offers a 401k, at least put in the minimum to get the match. So if your company's matching 6%, put in 6%.
Right.
And but some people don't understand. And I remember my first corporate job. I was still in college, and I had a full-time job while I was in college, and it wasn't like anything fancy. I worked at a bank, and I remember we had a session that came in, or seminar on 401k. And I remember the guy specifically saying, if you start putting money in your 401k now, he ran numbers. I can't remember the exact amount he was saying to contribute. He said,
Right.
by the time you're in your 30s, you're going to be a millionaire. And he told me, like, he said one word, compound, or two words, compound interest.
Right.
And
Exactly.
how fast that money accumulates. And I remember like trying to do the math, and I was like, hold on. I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
And right now I actually look back and I'm like, geez, if I would have just started putting money in my 401k when I
Right.
was all of like 19 years old, like I could be a millionaire.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, it's important for us to understand so that we can teach others, especially those who are younger than us, whether it's your child or your nieces, your nephews, whoever's in your family or people in the community, on like what they need to do to build wealth, not only build wealth, but to pass that wealth down to the next generation.
Right. And that's one thing that I've really made a focus about the show is generational wealth. The last few shows we've talked about everything, whether it's forex, crypto, insurance, all of these different things that may lead into finding, first off, different forms of income, or different streams of income. Understanding that there is going to be a learning curve on a lot of different things, but at the same time, understanding, all of these factors that play a part into it. Like I said, we're going to see a lot of shifting, especially after this virus situation or whatever, all of that good things. I think that one of the good things that come out of this virus is people have understood that they need multiple streams of income.
Yes.
And second, that they also need to probably learn how to budget better, because you don't really know about the food situation. There's so many question marks that I think there's even making your own food, growing your own food, or doing, making your own bread, whatever, finding different things to do to cut down on cost, some of those frivolous things that we're spending money on. I think that is like one of the good things that will come out of this virus situation. But what do you think about that?
I definitely agree as well, because think about, like, we've been in quarantine. People have been secluded to their homes, aside from going to Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, and
Yeah, right.
Target. And
Walmart.
I think one thing a lot of people have realized is, okay, they've overspent because they decided to hoard food or other items because they think the world is ending. And so,
Toilet
or
paper everywhere, right? I mean,
yeah.
toilet paper,
But then they also realize, like, wait a minute, I'm saving on other expenses like entertainment. Like, most people have some sort of entertainment expense in their budget, and so since everything's closed, they can't necessarily go out unless you're just buying an ample amount of movies, like to download at home or watch at home, or the typical like Netflix, Hulu. Like, I remember the shutdown started in March. And I filled my car up because I remember telling everyone, like, everything was shutting down. Just fill up your car. That tank of gas lasted me for over a month because I wasn't going anywhere.
Same here. I don't think I still haven't filled up my car yet.
Yeah, but in addition to that, gas prices dropped. So gas is like so cheap. Like, people realize, okay, I'm saving like all this money on gas. I saved all this money on entertainment. And then people have not been eating out because people have been fearful of to eat in restaurants. So they may eat out like once or twice, but not as much. And so I know I've had some people say, okay, now I have all this extra money. Like, what do I do with it? And these are people who never had a budget before because they have claimed that they didn't have room to make in their budget. And it's like, okay, if you cut out the entertainment, if you cut back on eating out, you actually do have money to save. So I do think once this is over, people are going to realize that, one, you definitely need a budget. You need to have an emergency fund. In addition to that, there's going to be so many people pivoting, not only within their business and finding different ways to reach an audience, but there's going to be corporations that are pivoting to a remote workforce because everyone's been working from home.
Right,
Or
exactly.
most people who can, if you have a job where you can't work from home, people have been working from home. So there's going to be a lot of pivoting, and people are going to realize, well, maybe I need another source of income. Maybe I don't want to rely on this 9 to 5 to be my sole source of income, and I can be laid off at any time. And I think I'm thankful that I learned that early on, because I was laid off at 25 from my first job after college. Well, not my first, not second. my first real job after college. I was laid off.
No, that's your first one. Don't even count.
After almost 2 years, I was laid off. I was working for Coca-Cola, and I thought it was like the best job. Wasn't making much money, but I was like, I work for Coca-Cola.
Right, exactly.
And I remember I worked in their customer finance department, and our department was being outsourced. So it was right before the like the 08-09 crash and recession, depression, whatever you whatever people like to call it. I say it was a depression because it took me almost 2 years to find another job that was going to pay me some money. So so I'm fortunate to have learned that early on, and I have always kept multiple revenue streams. And I try to tell people the importance all the time. Like you say you have a good job, you work for a great company, you don't want to do something else, but sometimes you have to do something else because you don't know what the future holds. And right now, people are on edge because people are unsure of which companies are going to cut the cord to their department, or they're like, okay, am I getting laid off? Well, some people just want the news like right now. They're like, I don't want to wait till later. Just tell me now. And like companies aren't going to do that. They're not going to give you like 4 months notice and tell you that you're going to be laid off.
Exactly. And especially being in the tech industry, we know exactly what's probably coming up. And because, it's going to be a lot of, these people who've been working from home, or, once we figured out who was the real essential workers, that, there's going to be a lot more business automation for all those other people. And it's like, look, okay, once we open back up, you may or may not have a job anymore because we figured out what we really need to do without you, or saying, okay, we can minimize this person. It might be overtasking them at this point, but at the same time, we can find different ways, whether, like I said, creating workflows, creating some type of business automation to try to, get rid of some of those jobs, and try to minimize, because there's a lot of profit that the companies are missing out on right now, and for them to try to recoup some of that money is like, okay, we may or may not need to bring you back. It's like I said, it's going to get a lot more stickier, especially when things start opening back up, and whether it's going to be, and that's another thing I want to touch on before we cut out of here, is the real estate part, and everything that's going to boil into that, because there's one of the things that we really need to focus on, especially when we're trying to get our budget and our personal finances together, is the real estate part. And what makes sense, whether it makes sense to rent or buy, and if how are we going to create those budgets to be in a position to buy a home? How a lot of people think that you have to be rich to start budgets, or to be, because I hear a lot of people who say, man, that's more for rich people. I don't have 2 nickels to rub together. I can't save, right? How do you approach people who have that mentality to say, or maybe they don't know how to cut back on some of the things that they may be spending frivolously on?
So I usually approach that situation with asking the person to write down what they're spending their money on, and then we walk through it. Because what's so funny is I just had this conversation yesterday, but there's so many people who don't understand the difference between a need and a want, and so many people think that some expenses are general needs of life, and when they break it down, I'm like, this is not necessarily a need. This is like a want. This is something that you want. It's not something you need to survive. And so once we start breaking down into those categories, and then discussing ways that they can actually save money, whether it's getting rid of the expense altogether or trying to negotiate with whatever company, whether if it's their cell phone company, their car insurance. I know someone who is paying way too much for car insurance, and had to tell them you can negotiate. And people don't understand that we're consumers. Like, we have the power. Like, we can cut off our service with these companies. You don't have to buy into a service. So consumers are very powerful. If you tell a company that you're going to disconnect your service, then watch the discounts that they're going to give you then, and then you can find room that way. But gosh, I hate to pick on my women, any women that's listening, I'm sorry, but I did a workshop for all women. It's probably 50 women that were there, and this was 2 years ago. But this is like, it's not funny, but it's one of the most memorable sessions I've had, where people have been almost defensive, where we went over what your needs are, what your wants are. And I had a woman tell me that it was like a necessity for her to get her nails done, her hair done, and her toes done like every 2 weeks. And I'm like, no, it's not.
I know, right?
And she's like, no, this is a need. And I'm like, you can do your nails on your own.
Right.
I went like a whole year without getting my nails done. Back in 2016, I challenged myself.
Exactly what year it was.
I challenged myself to cut back on some expense. And I remember looking at my expenses, and I had spent so much money getting my nails done the year before, where I was going every 2 weeks. Like, because I had a friend, a partner in crime, I'll call her. And not saying that she was behind it, but she was always like, okay, we got to get our nails done. And it was like, she would go every week. And then I would try to go like, every 2 weeks. And I looked and I'm like, this wasn't like the $20 manicure. This is like, full blown, getting the acrylic, the gel, like the whole shebang, to where every time I was spending like $100+ And I was like, okay, maybe I can, start doing my nails myself. And I remember I started giving myself manicures, and I did it for an entire year. And when I looked at how much money I saved like almost $2,000 just by cutting back on those particular expenses. So there are things that we can like do ourselves. I think that some people are lazy, or they get into this mentality of like wanting to treat themselves, which is, there's nothing wrong with wanting to treat yourself, but I say you have to do it sparsely.
So we got a person that says
that's when YouTube University comes in handy. Learn how to do your own hair. Yes, learn how to do your own hair and nails. Like right now, my nails aren't done. I'm sure right now. These nails are not. I haven't had a manicure since my birthday. That was in February. Wow. And so even though our nail salons have opened back up in Texas, like, I'm afraid. Like, I'm really scared to go and get my nails done. And I'm like, you know what? Eventually, I'm gonna do my nails. I did them. I bought a gel kit off of Amazon, and I did them like one time. And since I've been getting things together in my house, I'm like, you know what? It can wait. It's not really like something that you can do. So even now, I try to challenge myself not to spend unnecessarily money, even though I'm in a great position financially. But it's like, even when you have the money saved, even when you're being financially responsible, you can still be more responsible and more be a leader for other people, and teaching them like that you don't have to spend the money just because you have it. Like, I have a 6-figure savings account. And when I tell people that, some people are like, how did you save this much money? And I'm like, dedication. You have to dedicate yourself to the goals that you want to achieve. So I told myself in 2018, I actually started this particular savings in 2018. So in less than 2 years, I saved $100,000, which to me is like unbelievable. I'm like, how in the heck? Like, what the hell?
I know, right?
It's still unbelievable to me, because I've never, aside from starting that 2 years ago, the most that I've ever been able to save was $20,000. And then an emergency would happen and the money would go. And then I was just like, okay, something is going on. This world is going to end. We got a pandemic.
Right, I know, right? Exactly.
So you just have to challenge yourself to achieve your goals. Start with something small. People who don't have a savings, if you're watching, challenge yourself to save $500. Once you save that $500, then create another challenge for yourself. Okay, and now say, okay, now I want to save $1,000, because that's essentially what I did. You have to start small, and then you can attain the larger goals, and it motivates you once you do it in increments. So 500, 1,000, and then if you want to go from 1,000 to 5,000, I know that's a little bit of a stretch. But start setting those goals, and then go from 5,000 to 10,000. And then it's like, you can do whatever you put your mind to. You just have to have dedication.
Right. And I think one of the notes, especially from this book I read, I think it's called balling on a budget. Um, but it's it's got to you got to pay yourself first.
You do.
You definitely got
You
to pay
have to pay
yourself
yourself
first.
first.
I
And I
know,
think
right?
that's what a lot of people like fail to realize. Like we get paid and it's like the first thing we think about is bills. Like, oh, I gotta pay my rent or my mortgage or my car payment. Like I always tell people, if you put money in your savings account first, that's gonna help motivate you to get to that next step in your savings. Because let's say you got paid, your paycheck's $2,000. Just using an easy number where we can calculate,
Right,
and you want to save 10%. I always tell people save 20%, but if you're just getting started out, you have to start somewhere. So you
right,
put 200 in your savings, until you can build yourself up to that 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever it is that you can
right,
afford to save. And then once you pay out your mandatory bills, so your rent, your mortgage, your car note, your car insurance, you're buying groceries,
right,
um, when you look at the amount of money you have left, you may only have $100 left, $200. Some people don't have anything left, but you got to have something. You got to get gas to get you into
right,
the next pay period. But if you wait until you pay all those expenses to move money to your savings, you're not going to want to do it. You're like, okay, I only got $300 left,
exactly. I'm
and
getting extra
do I really
cheese. I'm getting
put
everything.
$200 in savings? Like, I mean, you're not going to want to do it. Trust me. I've been there several times where I pay my bills first, and I'm looking at the money that's left in the account, and I'm like, okay, this kind of get me from to the next paycheck. Okay, but I want to go out. I want to hang out with my friends. I want to go to happy hour, and
Right,
you're not going to want to put the money. So pay yourself first and
right,
put it in a savings that you can't touch. So like one of those online savings where there's not a brick and mortar where you can just walk in and withdraw money, something that doesn't even have a debit card. There are savings accounts like that, and when you can't touch it, or you think that you actually like need the money right away and it's going to take like a day for the transfer, like
yeah,
you're going to sit back and realize like, okay, maybe I really don't need to go and buy this pair of shoes or
right.
go to whatever concert that you wanted to go to. I always say Beyonce because everybody goes crazy about Beyonce concerts and her tickets are so expensive.
Right, and that's one thing I tell people a lot too. So if you have a direct deposit, utilize that through your job. Get it going to a separate bank account that you do not have a debit card for. you know, that way is now you don't have time to go to the bank. You don't have time to do all this other extra stuff. So guess what? Have a direct deposit to a bank that you don't have a debit card to, and just let it. You won't even see it. It's taken out of your check already. I know a lot of people have other things that's probably already taken out of their check prior to them actually seeing their real money. So think about it the same way. Have a separate account that's already created just for additional saving account, and make sure that you can't touch it. And that'll give you another way to save money without being able to access it, easily. I mean, like I said, if you need it in a dire emergency, understandably so. But at the same time, it's going to take a lot more effort for you to be able to touch it as opposed to just swiping a card.
Yeah, that's definitely correct. So you got to start somewhere. So for those, like if you're listening, to save a little bit of money and work until you're getting to that bigger goal because it's attainable. And sometimes you have to do your affirmations and tell yourself, like, you are responsible, you are wealthy, you are on a budget, you
Right,
balling on a
exactly.
budget,
Talk to yourself in the
you're
mirror.
balling on a budget.
All right, so I want to give you a couple of shout outs here. Make sure you go and check out up front. It's an entrepreneur quick start guide. Hopefully, you can see that without a glare. Maybe. All right. This is one of the books by Angel Radcliffe here. So, if you are interested in starting a business, this is like one of the best guides to pretty much go through.
It's
It's almost
gold. It's gold.
I'm telling you. I mean, like, man, some of the things that you probably don't think of. If you think of, DUNS numbers or EINs or all of that great stuff that, all these different letters and terminologies and LLCs and all these, alphabet soup of starting an entrepreneurship is in this book. So go and figure this, go and get this. I know it's available on Amazon as well. So go and check that out up front for the Entrepreneur's Quick Startup Guide. And also the other book
Balling on a
I have
budget.
on my shelf here. Balling on a budget. Yeah, this is going to get you started. If you do not have, if you are not currently uh, on a budget, if you're not using Mint.com or some type of other program or app to help you track your expenses, make sure you go and check out this book. It'll give you a lot of different ways to do it, to understand how and why and all of that great jazz there. So make sure you go get those. Don't fall.
Definitely. Both those books are on Amazon.com. You can search my name, Angel Radcliffe. You can search for the books. They're also on my website, missrmba.com.
All right.
I also have shirts on my website. So it's a lot of different balling on a budget shirts. And I have something else I'm actually getting ready to put up tomorrow.
Uh-oh. All right.
Hold up. My balling on a budget face
Oh,
mask.
wow. Look at that. Balling on a budget face
Balling on a
mask.
budget face mask.
That's what's up.
These actually just came today, but I'll be putting them on the website tonight or tomorrow, and so may do some packages as well to go with the shirts. But these are pretty cool. I was like, wait a minute, I'm tired of wearing this plain medical mask.
Yeah, you better go ahead and rep your book. That's what's up. That is what's up. And you said you have the t-shirts as well. That's coming too as well, right?
Well,
I know you used to have.
They're already on the site. Those shirts have been. I've been through maybe like 5 variations of shirts, tank tops to shirts to sports shirts, but they're on my website.
Oh, okay. So missrmba.com. All of the stuff is there. If you need to reach out to her, if you want to book her for speaking engagements. And I know she has. I used to have her site memorized because I used to be on there all the time trying to figure out what's going on. But yeah, I know you can book stuff. All of the different things she got going on. Like I said, she has her hand in a lot of different things. So go check her out there. Also, go check her out on IG, Twitter, and Facebook at Miss RMBA as well. So I think that's going to wrap it up. We're going to just thank you for being here because we've had a great time here. Just learning about budgeting, about personal finances, about being able to get this this mentality pushed into our families and into our communities, because that's where it starts. It always starts at home. Like I said, a lot of us we probably did not get this information at home. So this is where it's going to start. So we really need to force this upon our parents, if maybe they don't know, our children, our cousins, or all of those people, to understand why it is to set a budget. Then you can ball on a budget. Then you can do a lot of different things with
You can do a lot of things on a budget. A lot of things on a budget.
Exactly. So we will definitely look forward to all the things that you're putting out. And yeah, I mean, we just appreciate. I thank you for being here. And I know we're probably running over into your time here, so
No, but thank you so much for having me and inviting me on your platform. I know that this is integrated into Periscope as well. So to Periscope family, I have a ton of old videos on Periscope. Some are educational, some are just funny. It's the same handle, Miss RMBA. I haven't been on Periscope in a very long time. I typically live stream from my Instagram account. And so make sure you follow me on Instagram. If you guys know me or you're starting to get to know me, I'm serious and funny. So sometimes I'll post serious things. Sometimes I post funny things. That's just my personality. And I think you have to show up and be your authentic self in whatever you do. So shoot me a message if you guys like to see a certain topic for me to do on live stream. Just let me know.
So awesome. I appreciate that. I know you could hear me, but they could not hear me. All good. All right. So thank you again for being here with us. I thank all of you for showing up and both on Periscope and on YouTube for this broadcast. Stay tuned. Next week we will have Atika Watkins. This week we kind of talked about personal finances. Next week we will talk about bookkeeping and business finances. So we'll, like I said, I'm trying to cover the bases of a lot of different things for us to understand how to start building and understanding generational wealth. All right, so thank you all for being here. Thank you. I will say goodbye to Angel there for a second.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Goodbye.
you. All right, so we got that. And I just want to make sure that you can support this show if you find this information valuable. The ticker is going across the bottom. The Cash App is cash more owned. Or if you want to donate via crypto, you can do so on fredbrandon.info. All information of upcoming and previous guests will also be on fredbrandon.info. You can see all of previous episodes also on YouTube at the IMF Brandon handle. So we thank you for being here, and we can't wait to see you next week. So until then, we will cut on out of here.